guys, it's T from Battle City Games. Today I'm really excited to bring y'all a Dark Magician deck profile for the April 2021 format. I think that this is actually a great rogue deck that can put up some great interruptions and really do some things that your opponent might not be expecting. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive on into the profile. So, as you can see, we have the main deck and the extra deck here. We're going to go ahead and move these out of the way and get started. So first up, we have Triple Dark Magician. It is a Dark Magician deck, so you're going to want to run 3 of these. I've seen some people try to get away with 2, but the problem there is if you open one, now you only have 1 left in your deck, and sometimes that's not as many as you need. So I recommend sticking with 3. Moving right along, our next card is going to be Triple Apprentice Illusion Magician. She's just an extender, so what she does is when she's in your hand, you can discard 1 other card to special summon her from your hand, and when she is special summoned, you get to add a Dark Magician from your deck to your hand. Essentially, she's just an extender. She helps get that extra monster on board for going into Anaconda early. She does also have the added effect, though, that you can tribute her from your hand or field when your Dark Spellcaster monster battles in order to give it 2,000 attack. So there are situations where that can come up as she acts kind of like an honest for the deck. So next up, we're going to be looking at Triple Magician's Rod. This is essentially what you always want to be your turn 1 normal summon. What Rod does is when it is normal summoned, you get to search your deck for any spell or trap that specifically lists the card Dark Magician in its text, which is most of your spells and traps in this deck, so you have quite a few options. It's just really what's going to get you going, gives you a lot of options to open up your turn, and kind of lets you go in whatever direction you need to sculpt your hand correctly. Moving right along from that, we're going to be looking at Triple Magician's Souls. This came out in the Legendary Duelist pack, and it's a great extender for the deck. So what it does is when it's in your hand, you can special summon it by sending a Dark Spellcaster from your deck to the graveyard. You can either special summon Magician's Souls, or you can special summon the card that you sent from your deck directly to the graveyard. And then while it's on the field, you can also send up to 2 spells or traps from your field or graveyard, from your field or hand to the graveyard in order to draw the same number of cards. So it can be up to a draw 2, and is great for getting rid of some of your less than useful cards. Moving right along from there, we have some of the hand traps. So it's going to be Triple Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Just one of the best hand traps in the format right now. Has been for a while. It's great at shutting down your opponent's plays whenever we go to search for deck or special summon from deck, which, let's be honest, most decks do that, so that's why I chose to go with her. And then moving into the 2-ofs, we have 2 Ghostbell and Haunted Mansion. A lot of the format right now is very dependent on adding cards from a graveyard back to the hand or special summoning from the graveyard, so Ghostbell just shuts most of those cards down. And remember, even if your opponent activates a card that has more than 1 effect, even if you're not using the effect to summon from graveyard, if it includes that ability in the effect, you can still respond with Ghostbell to shut that card down. After that, we're going to be moving on to 2 Jester Confit, a level 1 spellcaster monster that lets you special summon him from your hand for free. There's no cost or any other requirements on that. Some people do like to use dangers in this deck instead of Jester Confit, but I've got a little something in the extra deck that I'll show y'all later, which is why I chose to go with Jester Confit instead of the danger monsters. After that, we're going to move on to the 1-ofs for the deck. So we have the 1 Dark Magician Girl. You have to get the Lost Art because that is the best artwork of her. And essentially, she is the brick of the deck, or one of the bricks, but she's very important because if you have her in the graveyard with your Soul Servant, it turns Soul Servant into a Pot of Greed instead of an Upstart Goblin, so it is definitely worth playing the 1. And you do have some options to summon her out and go into some fusion plays with her as well, so she's not the worst. After that, we have 1 Keeper of Dragon Magic. This is just a level 4 monster that you can normal summon if you don't open up with your Magician's Rod. They are really the only 2 normal summons you're playing in the deck, so it doesn't hurt. And what he does is when he's summoned, you get to search your deck for any fusion or polymerization spell card and add it to your hand. So we've got a couple different search targets in here for him. And again, he's just one of those cards you want to use to make sure you get 2 monsters on board on turn 1. And then our last monster is going to be the 1 Red Eyes Black Dragon, because we are playing Dragoons in the extra deck, so we need a Red Eyes to go into Dragoons. Alright, so that's going to round out the monsters. Moving on to the spells, we have triple Dark Magical Circle. This is the bread and butter of the Dark Magician deck, and really kind of what it got it started as an archetype. So when Dark Magical Circle is activated, you get to look at the top 3 cards of your deck and add either a Dark Magician or 1 spell or trap that specifically lists Dark Magician in its card text from your deck to your hand, and then you place the other cards on the top of your deck in any order. So you get to stack them a little bit, which actually comes up a little bit later on. And then also, once per turn, whenever you summon a Dark Magician, you get to target 1 card on the field and banish it. So this really does set you up for some nice disruptions during your opponent's turn, make it a little bit harder for them to play through your board that you've established. After Dark Magical Circle, we will be moving on to triple Soul Servant. So this is another great card that we got out of the Duelist pack. And what this one does is, when it's activated, you get to search your deck for 1 card that lists Dark Magician in its card text. So it doesn't necessarily have to just be a spell or trap. It could also be one of your monsters like Magician's Souls or Magician's Rod. And you take that card and place it on the top of your deck. You don't add it to your hand. But its secondary effect is that you can banish it from your graveyard, and then you draw cards equal to the number of differently named Dark Magicians and Dark Magician Girls in your graveyard. So again, if you have a Dark Magician, then it's an upstart goblin, but if you're able to get Dark Magician Girl into your graveyard as well through something like Magician's Souls, then now it becomes a Pot of Greed, which is extremely good. And once again, if you pair it alongside Dark Magical Circle, you can stack those cards that you're going to be drawing to make sure you get the optimal draws. And don't forget, it is a quick play. Doesn't come up too much, but the option is there. That's going to do it for the 3 of spells. Moving on, we have 2 Red Eyes Fusion. This is just what you're going to be sending off your Anaconda, as well as giving you the ability to add it from the Keeper of Dragon Magic. It just sends the materials for a Red Eyes monster from your deck to the graveyard to fusion summon that monster. But if you do actually activate it from hand, you cannot summon any other monsters for the entire turn. That includes before you activate Red Eyes Fusion. Now, a lot of people do prefer to go with 1, but the reason I chose to go with 2 is because we are playing more than 1 Dragoons in our extra deck, and this gives us the ability to go into a second one later on if we need to, and also if your first one gets Ash Blossomed or something like that, you do still have the ability to activate another one on the next turn. After that, we're going to be looking at the Eye of Tomius. This isn't over one of your fusion cards. It's not searchable by Keeper of Dragon Magic, and unfortunately, because of the way it's worded, you're actually not able to add it off of your Dark Magical Circle or any other card that allows you to add those Dark Magician cards to your hand. But it is great because it's a 1-card fusion, so it lets you target a Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl you have, and then special summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck that specifically lists that card as its fusion material. So we play multiple different targets for Dark Magician, as well as a target for Dark Magician Girl as well. Moving on, we have the 1 of Magicalize Fusion. This is basically Miracle Fusion for spellcasters, so it lets you banish the fusion materials listed on the fusion monster from your field or graveyard to summon that fusion monster from your extra deck. This is actually a great follow-up for your Red Eyes Fusion, because if you used Red Eyes Fusion on the turn prior, then on the next turn you can go ahead and use Magicalize Fusion to make your second Dragoons, or to make whatever other fusion monster you need at the time. Moving on from there, we have the 1 of Secrets of Dark Magic. This is another fusion spell. It's a quick play, which is great because it allows for some OTK potential, but when it's activated, you get to fusion summon using materials from your hand or field, and it does list Dark Magician in its card text, so it is actually a searchable fusion spell as well, just in case you need to go that route. That's going to wrap up the spells. Now moving on to the traps, we have triple Eternal Soul. This is a continuous trap that has 2 really great effects for the deck. So the first effect lets you add a dark magic attack from your deck to your hand once per turn, which is essentially Heartbeast Feather Duster if you have Dark Magician on board. The other effect, which is the one we're going for in this deck, is that once per turn you can special summon one Dark Magician from your hand or graveyard. So it gives you some great recursion to get those Dark Magicians that you sent off of Red Eyes Fusion back to your field, and hopefully you have your Dark Magical Circle set up so that you can banish a card every time you do that. Now the one downside here is if Eternal Soul does leave the field, it destroys all of your monsters, but hopefully that won't be happening thanks to the protection we have. Moving on from there, we are playing triple Solemn Strike. This is just our disruption trap of choice. It pay 1500, counter trap, negate any monster effect, and destroy the monster. It's just a good disruption because it can't be responded to, so in formats that have lots of negates on board, if you can get this, it doesn't give your opponent the opportunity to respond to that and shut it down in any way. You could sub this out with any other trap that you prefer, such as Ice Dragon's Prison, Infinite Impermanence. There's a lot of options you can go for this slot, but I chose to go with Solemn Strike here. And then the last card in the deck is going to be the One of Magician's Navigation. This used to be a card that you would always play at 3, but now that we have some more consistency options, we don't really need it as much. So what Navigation does is, when it's activated, you can special summon a Dark Magician from your hand, and then special summon one level 7 or lower spellcaster from your deck. That's not the effect we're really actually looking to use here, though. The second effect is if it's in your graveyard, except the turn it was sent there, and you control a Dark Magician, you can banish it to target one spell or trap on the field, and negate that effect for return. So if we have Dark Magician on board, and we sent this to the graveyard, say with Magician's Soul last turn, we can actually use it as another free negate when our opponent decides to activate a spell card. So like I said, you don't really need it at 3 anymore, but I do think it's a great one-of, just to give you that little bit of extra negation when you need it. Now, that's going to wrap it up for the main deck, guys. Let's go ahead and move into the extra deck. So starting off, we do play 2 Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. Again, this is just one of the most powerful cards in the game right now. It takes a Dark Magician plus a Red Eyes Black Dragon or 1 Dragon effect monster. So we can make this obviously with Dark Magician and Red Eyes, but we can actually also make it with the Keeper of Dragon Magic since he is a dragon monster. What he does is, once per turn, you can discard a card to negate the activation of a spell, trap card, or monster effect, and destroy that card. If you do, he gains 1000 attack till the end of the turn. And then also, once per turn, you can destroy cards on the field up to the number of normal monsters used for his fusion summon, so in most cases that'll be 2. He also cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects. So once we get him on board, he's going to be extremely hard for our opponents to deal with, and it's really honestly the kind of boss monster that the Dark Magician deck needed. It's unfortunate that he's getting used in so many other decks, but he definitely does shine here. Moving on from the Dragoon, we have the Dark Magicians. This is going to take a Dark Magician and any spellcaster effect monster, and what this does is, once per turn, when a spell or trap card is activated, you get to draw a card. It's a quick effect, and then if the card you drew is a spell or trap card, you can set it to the field, and if it was a quick play spell or trap, you can go ahead and activate it in that same turn. It is a 2000 attack monster that's pretty easy to get on the board, so it's just going to be a great option if you've already gone through your Dragoons, or maybe you don't need to make a second Dragoon, just to kind of help you build some card advantage as the game rolls on. And again, it's extremely easy to summon since it is just Dark Magician plus any other spellcaster, and our entire deck is made up of spellcasters. Moving on from there, we have the One of Dark Paladin. This is one of my favorite cards in the extra deck. It's got a lot of nostalgia linked to it, and it's super easy to summon since we can bring it out by using Eye of Tomius on a Dark Magician. We don't actually need the Buster Blader, and it does have a solid effect that states that when a spell card is activated, we can discard 1 card to negate the activation of that card and destroy it. It's like an old school Magic Jammer on legs. And then in addition to that, he does actually gain 500 attack for every dragon monster on the field and in the graveyard, which means that just if we already have that Red Eyes Black Dragon established in our graveyard, he's actually going to come out at 3,400 attack. And if we're playing against something like Dragon Link, he's going to get very big very fast, so he can actually be an OTK enabler for you as well. Moving on, like I mentioned with the Dark Magician Girl, we do have a fusion target here, and that's going to be Dark Magician Girl the Dragon Knight. To be honest, this is not one we're going to go into very often, but she does have the useful quick effect that we can discard a card to target one monster on the field and destroy it. So if we need some spot removal and we don't really have anything else going, we can use our Eye of Tomius with Dark Magician Girl to bring this out. That's going to do it for the fusion monsters. Next we're going to go into the links. So first up is Relinquish Anima. As you saw, we're running some level 1s with Magician's Souls, and Jester Confit. And this is going to give us a little bit of removal. If we're going second and our opponent uses some bad zone placement, we can go ahead and use one of them to go into our Anima and suck up whatever monster is directly in front of it. And he is actually a spellcaster, so there are some useful things that can come up with him even later on. After that, our next link monster is going to be Induct, the World Chalice Dragon. This is just in here because he can be made with any normal monster, which Dark Magician is a normal monster, and he is a dragon type. So say we open up with something like Magicalize Fusion, but no other way to get into our fusions, we can actually bring out the Dark Magician with something like Magician's Souls, and we can link him off into Induct, and now that Magicalize Fusion is live to go ahead and go into our Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, since Induct is a dragon effect monster. That's really his only purpose here, but it does come up enough to make him worthwhile including. That's going to do it for our link 1s. Moving on to our only link 2, we have Predaplant Verte Anaconda. If you don't know what Anaconda does, it takes any 2 effect monsters, and then you can pay 2,000 life points to send a fusion spell from your deck to the graveyard, and his effect becomes the effect of that fusion spell. So in most cases, we're going to be sending Red Eyes Fusion, and then bringing out our Dragoon. Now the important thing is to remember, you cannot special summon after you activate this effect, so if it does get negated by something like Ash Blossom, then you are going to be left with an Anaconda sitting on board. But in most cases, this is our ideal opening play, which is why we should play so many different extenders, like I talked about earlier. Moving on from there, our one link 3 is going to be Celine, Queen of Master Magicians. She's a spellcaster that when she is link summoned, you get to place counters on her equal to the number of spell cards in both players' graveyards. And then she does have the effect that you can remove 3 spell counters to special summon any spellcaster from your graveyard to a zone she points to. Once again, we're playing a lot of spellcasters, so we have a lot of targets with her, and her primary purpose is going to be to help us get into the next card. Speaking of the next card, that is going to be our access code talker. He's just probably the best link 4 in the game, is a great OTK enabler, and by using Celine to get into him, he is going to go up to 5,300 attack, which is quite large, and will help us to go ahead and OTK our opponent when we need to. If, access code is a little pricey, if you can't afford him, you can always cut the Celine and the access code for maybe a Boral Sword and any other card of your choice. But if you do have them, I think the access code is probably the best link for you can run in the deck right now. That's going to wrap it up for our link monsters. Moving on into our exceeds, we have Ebon Illusion Magician. This is the first Dark Magician themed exceed that we got quite a while ago. And he takes any 2 level 7 monsters. He has 2 really good effects. So his first effect is you can detach 1 exceed material to special summon a normal monster from your deck. So you can go ahead and bring out a Dark Magician to be on board alongside him. And then when a normal monster declares an attack while he's on board, you get to target a card on the field and banish it. So again, he just offers some extra removal and can help you push through some damage when you need to. After that, our second rank 7 is going to be Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon. Mostly here to help burn your opponent when you need to. While he's on the board, anytime your opponent activates a card or effect, they're going to take 500 damage. That is not once per turn, so if you go ahead and get him on board when your opponent has quite a few combo pieces to go through, that damage can build up very quickly and is great if you know you're getting close to time or anything like that. In addition, he does actually have another effect we can take advantage of, which is the ability to detach one material and then special summon a Red Eyes Black Dragon from our graveyard. So again, it can help us push through some damage when we need to. That's going to do it for the rank 7s. Now we're going to get into the reason why we do run that Jester Confit. So that's going to be our Zeus Package, which is 1 Lyrilisk Assembled Nightingale, 1 Downward Magician, and 1 Divine Arsenal AA Zeus Sky Thunder. So using the Magician Souls and the Jester Confit, we can go into the Lyrilisk Assembled Nightingale, which will then attack our opponent directly. Main phase 2, we can go ahead and overlay the Downward Magician on top of the Assembled Nightingale for free. The Downward Magician is just there to give us the extra material, and then after we overlay the Downward Magician, we can go into the Zeus, and we'll have enough materials for 2 full Zeus activations, which is really what you want to go for in most cases, in order to make sure you get your value out of your Zeus. And this is just a really great option in case, like I said, if you can't get into your Anaconda, you can go to Zeus, sit on him, and it's extremely hard for most decks to play through 2 Zeus activations, so it'll help keep you alive until it gets back around to your turn, and you can continue playing from there. So that's the deck profile, guys. Like I said, I think this is actually a really great option for you to take to something like locals or your remote duels, and actually do pretty well if it can catch a lot of people off guard. And to be honest, anytime you have Red Eyes Dark Dragoon on the board, you have a fairly good chance of winning that duel. So I hope you enjoyed the profile. If you did, be sure to go ahead and give that video a thumbs up. If you want to comment, tell me what you think about Dark Magician in this format, or maybe what your favorite deck is to play right now. And if you like the video, feel free, go ahead and subscribe, and that way you don't miss out on future deck profiles.